I can
Hello,
show you.
everyone. My name is Roland Dupre. I'm at Raymond Library in East Hartford, Connecticut, and I'm talking to Lolly Extract, who is in Chicago. Is that right?
Hi, everybody. Yeah, I'm in Chicago right now, and Chicago's doing good.
And we have one thing in common is Bennington Marionettes or Bennington puppets.
Yeah.
And so this is an example of one of the scenes from Bennington Marionette's Firebird. The horse is just lovely. You can see how beautifully built that was. And the prince there is lying on the stage, and the Firebird is flipping around the horse. It's one of many wonderful scenes from Bennington. Lolly, you want to talk about the founding and where you, because Lolly built a lot of the puppets and she is a fantastic actor and marionettist and builder, still doing it, still involved.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Got projects coming right up on my.
yeah.
Yeah, and
So
I took a few out. I brought a couple guys out in the background.
good, good.
So, and there's the big T-Rex up way
Ah,
up there.
I see.
We just had that out on Saturday.
In at the museum?
We were we were at a park called Big Marsh Park.
Oh, wow.
It's a nature preserve, and it was called Polar Adventure Day. And then we built myself and Amber Marsh, my daughter. We built two of those, and the other one is at the field at the cultural center on exhibit. It's
Oh,
in a
wow.
puppet exhibit right now because every year we get the international puppet exhibit. Here is a picture of them put together.
Oh, yeah. Now I saw this. I think I saw
So
this on Facebook or social media at some point.
yeah, if you look, there's two in the photograph,
Yeah.
and that's my back to the camera. So there are about four people. Amber is right. The other puppeteer is in between the legs,
Yeah, yeah. I see.
right in between the legs, and then there's two more people behind, and we are standing in front of the Field Museum here in Chicago. And we were just part of a March for Science that was
Oh,
2017,
that's
and
brilliant.
we led the parade. It was so great.
It
Uh,
looks really, they're very well articulated. And
these ones,
what
yeah, they
was the
really move
material?
well. Um, I like to use materials that are user friendly and that aren't so horrible for the environment. They're sustainable fab. So we use a lot of bamboo.
Mhm,
We use a lot of cardboard sculpture,
mhm,
and we do a lot of paper mache sculpture.
mhm.
And that's not to say that we don't use other things, like the bones are sculpted in that uh, it's interior insulation material for building. It's
Uh-huh. Yep.
called dowel. It comes in a couple different colors. So we
Yep.
sculpt in that, but I always hate that. But yeah, some of
Right.
the big legs, the bones underneath it.
Yeah.
But like the head is all cardboard.
So you must cover that foam with something, though. Do you cover, I mean, you sculpt it and
We
then you
sculpt
cover.
it in paper mache. We paper mache shell over
Ah,
top of it, but inside, like in the knees and through the spine, there's that's where we put in the substructure,
yep.
which is usually made out of uh, nylon strap. There's
Uh,
some really big pool noodles that go through there.
Oh,
We
cool.
use we use spring steel,
Uh-huh.
and you can see that the controls are made of bamboo. The bamboo is very light. If you were going to use like wood on that, you would just like double the weight right away, and
Right.
it just becomes really important, especially the bigger you get. Just like the smaller you get, you have to add weight,
Yeah.
and the bigger you get, you have to really like everything's got to be really
Really
hollow.
lightweight.
So
Yeah.
yeah, we just had it out and it's up there, and almost every time you take it out, you have to like go back in and do a little bit of repair or
Hmm.
upkeep.
Yeah.
But if you don't use a puppet, they just turn to dust.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just like
But
the whole universe.
the little thief of Baghdad.
Yes.
So getting back to Bennington, that that show was really fun to do. I
Was
had so much fun. There was a flying carpet and
it?
a sword fight on the flying carpet with the wazir as a vulture or something, right?
Yeah, I made that. It was one of my first birds I ever made. That
Just
hawk.
brilliant. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
And
I sculpted the show. We used Borodin, Rimsky-Korsakov. We used really great music. Scheherazade. It was based off the movie A Little Thief of Baghdad. We had our scariest effect, theatrical effect, which the way that we came about doing it evolved over live performances. But it was the genie coming out of the bottle. How about you guys?
yeah, I remember that. I remember,
Yeah,
and the giant, I mean, blue-faced genie that mask. Did you do the
that
mask?
mask. Yeah, we bought the mask. I remember we bought the mask and we brought it into the studio. And Amber, who was 4 at the time, took one look at it and started to cry. We had to put it back on the shelf and stuff. But we transformed that. See, the mask is a very famous mask. It's based on an actor from like 1930s horror,
Wow.
Tor Johnson. Tor Johnson.
That was the name of the actor?
Yeah, and it's
Oh, wow.
based off his. He's got like a sad, tragic face, but he's so gigantic
Yeah.
that is monstrously scary.
Yeah.
You know. So that was a great. We put a top knot on it.
Well, the smoke, I mean, we had the smoke coming through, right?
Yeah. The reason it was scary was that, you establish this perspective and everyone is like comfortable in it. People are only this big and they're walking around. And suddenly the lights go down, a strobe comes on, there's a puff of smoke. And we had a hollow stage and underneath, and we would fill that with fog before the moment. And then when we took up the trap door away, because that's where the genie would come up out of. We had a fan that we would turn on, and it would blow all the smoke straight up in the air,
Yes.
just like it was coming straight out of a bottle. And then the person would slowly crawl out. I mean, didn't have to come out fast, just slowly, and that was terrifying for the kids. And they would stand up, and then we did it twice. We did
Yeah.
it with that, and it was scary both times.
Yeah. It was beautiful.
Yeah,
I just, I am so blown away, was so blown away by the balance of the figures too. The marionettes
thank
were
you.
so well balanced, and that little thief of Baghdad, I, I just adored him. He was so wonderful to move, you know?
Uh, yeah, I loved performing those shows. They were a real joy to perform. Um,
Absolutely.
did
Now,
you how
go
about
ahead.
that spider web?
Yeah,
Did you
oh, that
yeah.
was great. Yeah,
It
all
was
those
a,
decks were just so wonderful. And
it was a macrame spider web that that Mac Aldridge, who lived beside um, our our studio carriage barn in North Bennington, Vermont. He made that. He
that
made
was
that. It was
beautiful,
special.
beautiful.
And then the spider itself was just a soft shell that you put a 9-inch balloon in and you blew it up, and then it got really big. And we had about a year of trying to figure out how to break the balloon, because there's a fight, for everyone who doesn't know the show, because we're just talking about the show here. But there's a fight between the little thief who's trying to get to this jewel to steal or something, and there's a spider protecting it, and he has to fight the spider. So we were trying to pop the balloon, and it would be flat. We had the pin in his foot for a while. We tried his hand, and it would just bounce off the balloon. It would never work. And I just came to me one time. You know how you have it, you're thinking about it back here in your brain, and it just pops up to put a weight on a string up on the control, so you would like release, a pin, and the weight would go down a string because it was like, some on some washers, and it would go down and it would hit the spider. And that worked. I mean, there'd be some times where it wouldn't work. Uh, and But most of the time that worked really well. It was really fun to think of these uh, solutions, you know?
Yes, absolutely. And it was fun to perform. It was so much fun to perform that show. There were so many challenges. You were always on the go, you know.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
loved it. I loved it. It kept you busy.
yeah. And they were 3-person shows usually. One person stayed down below, and the second person went up and down, and the third person, who's usually the lead puppeteer or first puppeteer, would stay on the bridge most of the show. So
Mhm.
we had a bridge, and I don't know if I have a picture of oh yeah, I do. I have a picture of the Bennington stage show, everybody. Oh,
Yeah,
sorry
this
about that.
is,
Okay,
yeah,
so this is Hansel and Gretel, and up here is the bridge,
yep.
and there's me, and there's Peter Schaefer, and
Yeah, Peter and I performed together too.
there's the there's the goose. I made that one, and there's Hansel, and there's probably Gretel, and there's the and those woods were really great. They're a little bit heavy.
Mm.
Um, they were
I
great.
remember.
We were not lit, but light reflected off of us. So
Well, and this was unique to Bennington that you traveled without masking, right? Do you want to talk
yeah,
about that?
yeah, how it happened that we figured it out. It was like I was going to Bennington College, and Cedric Flower was teaching the class, and so there was a class before me, before I came. So there was um, a bridge in a U, and it was made out of when you make a stage and you put seats on it and it goes up in levels. It was a U form of staging that you would put seats on to watch a show. So
Hmm.
it was made of steel and
Wow.
quite substantial. It was there, but it was in a U shape. And then they had a facade hiding the puppeteers. I can't even remember what that looked like. And they had a lean bar on the bridge. So when you were up on the bridge, there was a bar here. It's on a lot of like older type, on some bridges. So there was a lean bar, and I think there were maybe 6 students, myself included. We were on the bridge, and we were getting familiar with being on the bridge because your feet are 6 feet off the ground, off the stage area. And we all had a puppet in our hand, a marionette from the show that they did last year at the school. And we were all being brave and leaning on the bridge at the same time. So maybe 4 or 5 human adults leaning on this bridge, and it just tipped over forward, and everyone fell, and the facade got smashed to a million bits, and somebody had to go to the hospital, and I landed on my feet because as it tipped, I walked up to the other side because this was like 3 feet long, I mean wide. There was a lot of space up there. I walked to the top, to try to get the balance to go the other way because it went over slow and
Oh, wow.
sounded like a bomb went off. And I remember, like, before I saw what was going on, like how destroyed everything was, puppet smashed, I just started laughing.
Wow.
It seemed like, oh, that was funny.
Oh,
And then I saw how horrible it was. When we were building our show as students to present, I think it was a Snow Queen, we didn't put the facade back up. We put that in, that got trashed. And so when we presented these marionette shows with no facade, we got a lot of good feedback from it.
yeah, people
You know,
really enjoyed watching you guys.
they love, and it was like a whole different part of the performance. And
Right.
even now when I go out and puppeteer on stage, I get like comments about, oh, I get this look in my eye, and
Yeah.
stuff like that. So we kept it. And
Yeah, I remember. I think I was at a festival where you guys performed, maybe in the 80s sometime. I can't
yeah,
remember. And it was jarring for me to see you up there. But for people who are not like geared into the puppetry so much, that they're being introduced to this picture on stage, it really fed into the drama of it. Because especially you, because you were so, you embodied the character, right?
yeah, that's just part of it coming out of you, I
And
suppose.
I remembered that, and it was, and especially because the physicality is, and I don't think I saw Little Thief. I think it was another show, but how it mirrored your actions, the marionette mirrored your actions.
Thank you. Thank you
But
so
all the
much. I
shows, yeah,
sure
the
enjoyed
shows
it.
were done to recordings, right?
Yes, we used symphonic music, like the Firebird. Stravinsky's Firebird was.
That was
I
another show
still
I,
love that. I love
oh,
that music.
and the horse and the prince.
That
The
horse.
prince was great. What a
Yeah,
great,
that prince. Yeah,
that was
Ivan.
another balanced figure that was just really great to work.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I have pictures of Ivan, but I'm not like within my grasp right now.
Okay. And
But
Kashai, did you build Kashai? I just want to interject. Here is an entrance of Kashai, who's got this skull mask and he's built like a scorpion with wings. Very, very creative.
I helped build him. He was, one of the great things about theater and puppet theater is the collaborations. So, maybe somebody would sculpt it, somebody would do the costumes, somebody would string it, make the controls, and it
Mm,
would all come together.
wow.
So, Kashi the Deathless was mostly made by Cedric,
Mhm.
and like the craziness that this thing could be, uh, and that was embraced
Yeah.
by us and kept. His arms kind of changed over the years. We had like crab claws on it, but to describe it to your audience, this was the bad spirit in our in the Firebird, which is based on Russian folktale. So Ivan leaves the kingdom has a spell on it, and this creature bad guy kind of thing. So the way that we made it, the scenery was done like Russian lacquer boxes. We used, of course, Stravinsky's music, um, and the kashi was like a long lime green caterpillar legged body, and it had
I,
like a scorpion
the
tail
scorpion, I remember the
that would
scorpion part.
curl that came up on the end,
Yeah.
and he had his hands were like in his arms like this. He'd come out, and then his arms would grow out. They get really long. We had an effect. He had a skull head. He had bright orange hair coming down. It was long, and he had like a scorpion hat that
Mm,
was lime green that matched his body. And
yeah.
he had a shirt on. He had like a dark green shirt, like, and he could get, he'd rear up, or he could be on his legs in this way, or he could rip, and he gets destroyed. And then there's an egg that explodes at the end. It opens up, and the princesses at the end was like a really wonderful climax to the show. And they would come out, and they were all white and gray, and they would kind of melt, and then we'd flip them, and a very a brightly colored princess would emerge out of that. And that was kind of fun stuff to figure out. We had 9 at first, and then
Nine.
yeah, and that was
Wow.
just a lot. And then we brought it down to 4: a lead princess, and then 3 sisters.
Hmm.
I think there are like 9 in the story. Um,
You know what
and yeah,
kind of intrigues me too is that you are so aware of like everything that's going around you when you're performing. You need to be like you extend your awareness like 20 feet out. And when you're doing marionettes, you have to be aware of the marionette, of course, but also the performance is out there. So it's, can you speak to that about performing, especially with that kind of, you're way up top and 6 feet down is the marionette. Can you,
yeah.
how do you,
Well, long string marionettes are very rare because, as you know, like traveling with the bridge is
different?
of a lot. Uh, so first of all, you're far away from your puppet, and if you get tangled,
Yeah.
sorry, if you get tangled, if something happens, but we had a lot of ways of getting around that. Like there were these common tangles, I would call them. Like if you were sitting on the ground, your hamstring, your leg string can you go over your hamstring.
Hmm.
So instead of your hands coming up like this, one hand would go up, but one hand would like go in between your legs,
Yeah.
and you'd be stuck there. And that's hard to not pay attention to. But usually, I had all these ways of reversing it on stage.
Oh,
You
yeah.
ways, or I would help the person who got tangled that I was puppeteering with. I would even do things like I would say, "Hey, give me your control for a second," and I would untangle it.
Wow.
So I would do that kind of stuff
I remember
because,
you grabbing strings with your mouth.
oh yeah, I use my mouth. Like you do these things and you grab your mouth and you pull. Use your hands in your mouth, your legs, and everything. Yeah, so I would grab strings with my mouth, and I still would. I don't know if I have that. And so you have to be aware on the bridge because the bridge that we were standing on was, I think, like 24 inches wide. It's
Hmm.
scaffolding. Everyone out there in the audience, it's scaffolding, so it's still not that large. So if you cross somebody, if you're puppeteering and you're concentrating, but someone's coming this way, and they go behind you, and there were ways to pass. If a lot of times smaller, I would go low, and the person who was a little bigger would go high. It's easier for them to stay up above. And when I say low and high, I mean you got to get your butt out of the way.
Right.
So the crossing, like that curve in the human body. Um, so you had to be careful about where you put your foot. There was no lean bar. We did have a shin high, some masking, but you couldn't lean on that. Uh,
Mhm.
so some of the awareness is for safety,
Mhm.
and then you had to be aware, like, is that dragon coming out on stage on time? And you would see that they're having a problem lighting it, or they lit it, it went out, and they had to
Yeah.
light it again, or you would see what was going on. So you had to keep concentrating. Uh,
Yeah.
but and then the choreography. I think that when you do long strings, there might be like a very very tiny delay in what you do up here and when the puppet does it down here. So
Hmm.
the further away you get, there's like you have to just allow that to be in there, and you really have to have fun.
It has to be fun. It really
It's
does.
such hard work. It takes so much energy, and you have to make it fun. It's just
Absolutely.
if there's something that's not working, it's best to just cut it in the show if you can, if it's something physical. I mean, our shows were pre-recorded. I feel like that because they were pre-recorded, there's a lot of energy if you do it your voice live.
Yeah.
So you could concentrate, so you're much more like dancer, mime, actor,
Hmm.
combined puppeteer person um, up there.
Yeah.
But people can see you, and So if it was really dark and there was like, the stage you're on, there was stage blocking you, you didn't have to care so much about how you were performing. But if people could see you, then you're aware of that also. So you're doing a show up on top, but you're totally concentrating underneath. But I did some blocking that because our bridge was open. Like I
Hmm.
would fly over with the Firebird. Did you do that?
I think I
Uh,
did.
yeah, you
Yeah.
could do like, dive bombs where you fly high and then straight down, or you could you could go like in a bow around, or I used to do something outside. I'd go around me on the bridge for a moment and go
Wow.
down. You
Wow.
could go over and go because we had an upstage area and a downstage. Traditional marionette bridges, they just, if they have an upstage, it's under the bridge because the
Yeah.
bridge, they're playing mostly downstage. But
This
we
one
had,
is really, can you
yeah,
speak to the entrance of the angels? Because that's where the angels in Hansel and Gretel come from way backstage, right? And we had to cross the upstage as well as the downstage to get into the audience.
yeah,
Is that how it worked with you?
right. You would come out in the audience, but wouldn't you come up into the stage?
Yeah.
Well, the stage, one of the reasons we came out from the audience, and these angels were sculpted by Ann Ware.
Hmm.
They were they were beautiful. Each angel held a candle that lit the face, and they had candles in their head, which lit the area. So they were self-illuminating. So the
Hmm.
audience would turn to look at them, and while they turned their head, we would put the gingerbread house up.
Uh-huh.
And so when they turned back around, it was like the gingerbread house. This is a picture from Hansel and Gretel. The gingerbread house came up to the puppeteers, up
Wow.
came right up, so that one of the witches, we had a number of witches, could come out from the roof, be up on the roof a little bit up there. But
Mm.
so that's how we did that.
I had the most amazing dream. Angels everywhere. And they were singing. I had the same dream. I wish they'd have left us some food while they were here. I'm starving.
I
Moment.
have to
And
I have to interject because I can't, I was there when the truck burned. And
oh,
those three shows that we've been talking about, Little Thief, Firebird, and Hansel and Gretel, were the ones that burned in the truck. And it was such a tragedy in so many ways. But the shows had a life, and I think it it was in some ways better to go quickly than slowly. If
I know. I try to look at it that way. It's sad because they would have just because I wasn't there to take care of them. So it was Little Thief, the Firebird, and what was the
Hansel
third?
and Gretel.
Oh, Hansel and Gretel. That was one of our best shows. Those
Yeah,
were three of our best shows.
I know.
Uh,
They were all
yeah,
on
I
tour.
could do any of them anytime again. If you need them rebuilt again, you
Oh, absolutely. I would do it in a heartbeat. And
can.
you know.